Welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're going on a journey into,
Zen Buddhism.
that's right,
Zen.
Zen Buddhism. And we're going to be using excerpts from a book called Manual of Zen Buddhism, which was published in
Wow.
1935 by D.T. Suzuki, who was like a really influential scholar who helped introduce Zen to the Western world.
What I find so interesting about this manual is that it's structured more like a guidebook than a dense philosophical text.
Yeah.
It's almost like Suzuki wanted to give people like a practical understanding of Zen,
Right.
of the core practices and the texts that shape the lives of, Zen monks and people who follow that path.
So I've always been really interested in those like short, almost poetic verses you find in Buddhist texts, and the manual refers to them as gathas.
Oh.
Can you tell us more about what those are and how they're used in Zen practice?
So gathas are like concentrated drops of wisdom that are often embedded within the larger Buddhist scriptures known as sutras.
Okay.
So if you think of them as like poetic reminders of key teachings, they're used in Zen practice to really focus the mind and prompt deeper contemplation.
So it's not just pretty words, but it's like a tool to cultivate a certain way of seeing the world.
Exactly, yeah. A good example is the Gatha on opening the sutra from the manual,
Okay.
which highlights that precious opportunity we have of encountering the Dharma, the Buddhist teachings,
Mhm.
and really emphasizes the importance of understanding them deeply, not just accepting them at face value.
It makes me think about how often I just skim the surface of things and don't really absorb the meaning.
Right.
It's a good reminder to slow down and pay attention.
Totally. And that emphasis on genuine understanding, on seeing through illusions of our minds, is really central to the Zen approach.
Speaking of seeing through illusions, I was really struck by the Gatha of impermanence.
Yeah.
The manual mentions a legend that the Buddha was actually willing to sacrifice his life to share this wisdom.
Wow.
What do you think this says about how Buddhists view impermanence?
Well, it reveals how essential the concept of impermanence is to Buddhist thought.
Yeah.
It's not a morbid obsession with death, but a recognition that everything's in constant flux.
Hmm.
Nothing lasts forever. And accepting this truth instead of resisting it is seen as a key to, like, liberating ourselves from suffering.
That's so interesting. It makes you think about how much of our suffering comes from clinging to things that are bound to change.
Exactly. And it invites us to kind of cultivate a different relationship with the world, one that embraces change
Right.
rather than trying to, like, hold on too tightly.
Right.
Yeah.
The manual also includes the Yame Kwanon 10 Clause Sutra, which focuses on Kwanzaa, the bodhisattva of compassion.
Oh, interesting.
And it's said to bring good fortune and health if you recite it.
Oh, wow.
And I have to admit, I'm kind of intrigued by that blend of practical advice and profound philosophy.
It's a good example of how Zen draws from various Buddhist traditions,
Right.
integrating different elements into its practice.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you might be wondering about those chants you sometimes hear associated with Buddhism, the dharanis.
Yeah.
While they're not at the core of Zen, they did become part of Zen practice through the influence of Chinese Buddhism.
I've always found Tarani's kind of mysterious because their translations don't always seem to make logical sense.
Yeah, and that's because their power isn't really about the literal meaning of the words.
Uh-huh.
It's more about the sounds themselves,
Okay.
the vibrations that they create, and the intention behind them.
So it's more about like the feeling and energy than the intellectual understanding.
Yes, exactly. The manual mentions three main dharanis,
Mm-hmm.
one for removing obstacles, one for invoking compassion, and a third for achieving victory.
Wow.
It's like a spiritual toolkit for navigating life's challenges.
I like that. Now, shifting gears a bit, the manual also dives into some of the key sutras that are central to Zen Buddhism, the Shingyo, the Kwannon-gyo, and the Kongokyo.
Right.
And I've always found the concept of emptiness in the Shingyo to be pretty mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Can you shed some light on that for me?
So the Shingyaro, or Prajnaparamita Shrudaya Sutra, to give it its full name, gets right to the heart of emptiness, or sunyata.
Yeah,
It's definitely a challenging concept.
for sure.
The key is that it's not about nothingness.
Right.
It's more about recognizing that ultimate reality, that ground of being, is beyond our limited concepts and categories.
So not just empty space, but more like a state of pure potential, like a vast openness.
That's a really helpful way to think about it.
Okay.
It's like recognizing that the clay pot, before it takes on its specific form, has the potential to become anything.
Got it.
Yeah.
What about the Kwannon-gyo? What's the main focus there?
So the Konangyo, or Samattamukha Parivarta, emphasizes the boundless compassion of the Bodhisattva Kwanon, who embodies the desire to alleviate suffering.
Okay.
You might be familiar with the idea that koan can take on various forms to help all beings.
Yeah, Kwanon is almost like a cosmic superhero,
Right.
manifesting in different ways to save people from danger and fear.
Totally. And the Kwanongyo tells the story of how Kwanon receives this magical necklace as an offering, and then in an incredible act of generosity,
Yeah.
divides it to offer it to both Shakyamuni Buddha and Prabhupada Buddha.
Wow, talk about going above and beyond.
Right.
And what about the Kongokyo?
So the Kongokyo, or Vajrakritika,
Yeah.
delves into the nature of supreme enlightenment,
Uh-huh.
the power of seeing things as they truly are, with clear, unobstructed vision.
Got it.
It's about non-attachment, not just to material possessions,
Mm-hmm.
but also to our fixed ideas and our limiting beliefs.
That makes me think back to what you were saying about the gatha of impermanence and how clinging to things that are bound to change leads to suffering.
That's a great connection.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Kongokyo drives home this point with this powerful story about the Buddha in a past life as Kshanti,
Okay.
enduring dismemberment without any anger or resentment.
Oh, wow.
It shows the transformative power of understanding emptiness and non-attachment.
So from simple verses to these mind-bending sutras, it's clear that Zen draws from this rich and varied Buddhist tradition.
Absolutely.
But it also has its own distinct flavor, especially when we get to those teachings of the Chinese Zen masters.
Yeah.
They seem to have this very direct, no-nonsense approach.
They really did. They took these foundational Buddhist principles and developed a way of teaching that's so direct, experiential,
Okay.
and often expressed in very everyday language.
The manual mentions Huineng's Tanqing.
Yes.
He was the sixth patriarch of Zen, right?
It was a very pivotal figure,
Yeah.
a revolutionary figure
Uh-huh.
who challenged the prevailing belief that enlightenment was this gradual process achieved through years of disciplined practice.
Oh, interesting.
He taught that enlightenment is sudden,
Okay.
a flash of insight that can happen in an instant.
So does that mean you can just sit around and wait for it to happen?
That's a question many of his contemporaries asked.
Right.
The key to understanding his teachings is that this sudden enlightenment isn't passive.
Got it.
It's about clearing away the mental clutter that obscures our true nature, the Buddha nature that's already within us.
Okay.
He famously compared the mind to a mirror.
Right.
It's not inherently flawed, just covered with dust.
Yeah.
When the dust is cleared, perfect clarity is revealed.
That analogy of the mind as a mirror, it's so powerful.
It is. Well,
It really makes you wonder what kind of dust is covering our minds.
it certainly does, and that's one of the key questions Zen invites us to explore. What are the thoughts, the beliefs, the attachments that prevent us from seeing clearly, from recognizing our true nature?
We'll have to dive into that more later, but
Yeah.
the manual also mentions a Song of Enlightenment by Yokadaishi,
Mhm.
one of Huineng's disciples.
Yes.
What can you tell us about that?
So Yokadaishi's poem emphasizes transcending that dualistic thinking.
Okay.
Those pairs of opposites like rest and unrest,
Yeah.
gain and loss that we tend to get caught up in.
Uh-huh.
And it points to that realization of oneness, the interconnectedness of all things
Yeah.
as the heart of enlightenment.
I love that image in the poem of the Buddha's teachings roaring like a lion,
Right.
so powerful that it tears apart the timid animal's brains.
It's such a vivid metaphor for the way genuine understanding can just shatter our preconceived notions and shake us out of complacency.
Yeah.
It's a call to wake up to a deeper reality.
Speaking of waking up, the manual highlights two other Chinese Zen masters, Baso and Sakito,
Yeah.
who played a crucial role in shaping the Zen tradition.
They did.
What made their approach so unique?
So they were known for these short, often paradoxical dialogues with students.
Okay.
Imagine, like Zen riddles,
Uh-huh.
designed to provoke this mental jolt,
Yeah.
a sudden shift in perspective.
Okay.
They weren't interested in conveying information. They wanted their students to directly experience truth.
So instead of explaining concepts, they use these dialogues to kind of push their students' minds to a breaking point where an insight might occur.
Exactly. And the manual even provides some examples of these dialogues.
Yeah.
They're often baffling to read,
Yeah.
even frustrating. But that's the point.
Right.
Zen isn't about finding easy answers. It's about grappling with the unknown,
Okay.
pushing beyond the limits of our usual ways of thinking.
Sounds like a challenging but potentially rewarding path.
It is. It requires this willingness to surrender control, to let go of our need for certainty.
Yeah.
And speaking of letting go, let's talk about another key figure featured in the manual. Huang Po.
Huh?
His teachings delve into the profound concept of one mind.
I'm sensing a theme here. This
Yeah.
idea that the truth is already within us,
You got it.
that we don't need to search endlessly for it.
You're right on the mark.
Yeah.
Huang Po makes it crystal clear that there's no fundamental separation between Buddha and sentient beings.
Okay.
We all arise from this one mind, this ground of being.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that gem hidden in the strong man's forehead.
Right.
To use Huang Po's analogy.
Yeah.
We're already wearing it. We just need to realize it.
That's such a striking analogy.
It is.
But it also makes me wonder, if the answer is already within us,
Yeah.
why is it so hard to see?
Now that's the million-dollar question.
Right.
It brings us to another intriguing element of Zen practice, the use of koans.
Okay.
Remember Gensha and his challenging question about those three invalids, the blind, the deaf, and the dumb?
Yeah, I remember thinking, how's that going to help anyone?
Right.
It seemed more like a riddle than a practical problem.
And that's the nature of koans.
Okay.
They're not meant to be solved like ordinary problems.
Mm-hmm.
They're designed to highlight the limitations of our usual ways of thinking.
So it's not about finding the right answer.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
They're meant to be contemplated deeply,
Yeah.
wrestled with, even struggled against.
Okay.
Sometimes, in that moment of frustration or surrender, when we finally let go of our need to figure it all out, a flash of insight can occur.
Got it.
It's like a sudden crack in our rigid way of seeing the world, allowing a glimpse of a deeper reality to shine through.
That makes me think of what Dio Kokushi said in his poem on Zen. He talked about emptying our thoughts in exhausting words to recognize that one essence that pervades all things.
Yeah.
It sounds like koans are a tool for doing just that.
Yeah.
Exhausting our usual way of thinking so something deeper can emerge.
A wonderful connection.
Yeah.
It highlights how both meditation and koans, though seemingly different practices, are aimed at the same thing.
Okay.
Breaking through those limited conceptual minds to experience a more direct, intuitive way of knowing.
So we've got meditation for quieting the mind and koans for shaking things up.
Right.
And then, of course, we've got those 10 Oxherding pictures,
Yeah.
which, as we mentioned before, offer that visual metaphor for the Zen journey.
The Ten Oxherding Pictures so beautifully capture the progression
Yeah.
through those different stages of the Zen path.
Uh-huh.
Remember how it starts with that search for the ox, which represents our true nature, our Buddha nature?
It's not a linear path, right? It's more like a spiral.
It is.
You think you found it, and then poof, it disappears.
Yeah.
You're back to searching.
It's such a perfect reflection of the reality of spiritual practice.
Right.
There are moments of insight, followed by periods of confusion, and then deeper insights emerge.
Right.
It's this continuous process of refining and deepening our understanding,
Yeah.
letting go of what we thought we knew to embrace a wider perspective.
I remember being particularly struck by those final two pictures in the series where the ox and the man disappear, and then there's just this empty circle.
Those final images point to a state of complete non-duality,
Yeah.
where all distinctions dissolve.
Right.
There's no longer a separate self, no subject observing an object.
Okay.
It's a state of pure awareness beyond all concepts and labels.
Wow, that sounds like a mystical experience.
It is.
Something beyond language.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately where Zen points us. Beyond the realm of words and thoughts to a direct experience of reality.
This is all so fascinating, but I have to admit, I'm also feeling a bit overwhelmed.
Yeah.
It seems like such a radical shift in perspective, like a different way of seeing the world. Do we have to become Zen monks to truly understand and practice Zen Buddhism?
Not at all.
Okay.
While the manual does offer glimpses into the lives of Zen monks and the role of monasteries in supporting Zen practice, it also makes it clear that the essence of Zen can be cultivated by anyone,
Okay.
regardless of lifestyle or background.
So even though we might not be living in a monastery, we can still benefit from these teachings.
Absolutely.
Okay.
The manual mentions how Zen monasteries often house statues and images of various Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and historical figures important to the Zen tradition.
I remember that section, yeah.
It talked about the significance of different figures like Bodhidharma, who's considered the founder of Zen in China,
Right.
and Quanzian, the Bodhisattva of compassion. And let's not forget Fudaishi, who's often associated with Zen libraries and scholarship.
Right.
It highlights the multifaceted nature of Zen practice, encompassing not just meditation and koans, but also study, ritual, and communal living.
It's like a whole ecosystem designed to support the journey But how do you create that kind of supportive environment in your own life if you're not living in a monastery?
That's a great question. And it leads us to another important aspect of Zen practice,
Okay.
highlighted in the manual, the role of the Zen master.
It's clear that Zen masters aren't just teachers in the traditional sense.
Yeah.
They're more like guides, mentors,
Yeah.
even provocateurs sometimes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Their role is to help students see through their illusions, to break through the barriers of their own minds.
Okay.
And they often use unconventional methods to do this,
Right.
like we see with those koans and paradoxical dialogues.
Like Daito Kokushi, who compared monks who focused on rituals without genuine understanding to evil spirits.
He definitely was not one to mince words.
Yeah.
He understood the importance of challenging students,
Right.
pushing them beyond their comfort zones to awaken to a deeper reality.
So even though Zen emphasizes the truth within, the importance of realizing your own Buddha nature,
Yeah.
the role of a teacher seems pretty crucial.
It is. We often need that external perspective,
Right.
wise and compassionate guidance
Yeah.
to help us see what we can't see on our own.
It's like having a skilled mountain guide when you're trying to navigate a treacherous path.
That's a great analogy.
You might have the strength and determination to climb the mountain yourself, but that guide can help you avoid the pitfalls and stay on track.
And just as a mountain guide can help us reach the summit, a Zen master can help us navigate that inner terrain
Yeah.
of our minds and hearts, supporting us on the path to awakening.
This has been such a rich exploration so far.
It has.
We've covered so much ground, from those core texts of Zen Buddhism to the teachings of these various masters, both Chinese and Japanese.
Absolutely.
But what's the key takeaway here?
You know,
Yeah.
if I had to distill it down to one core principle, it would be this:
Okay.
the truth you're seeking, the peace, the wisdom, the awakening.
Yeah.
It's already present within you.
It reminds me of what Kwang Po was emphasizing in his sermon on the One Mind.
Right.
We're all, at our core, Buddhas, just waiting to realize it.
And that realization doesn't come from accumulating more knowledge
Right.
or achieving some special state.
Uh-huh.
It's about letting go of our attachments, quieting the mind, and seeing clearly.
Yeah.
Zen offers a path, but it's a path that ultimately leads back to ourselves.
So it's not about seeking something outside ourselves,
Right.
but about discovering what's already here in this moment.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Zen calls us to wake up to the present moment, to experience life fully and directly, without the filters of our thoughts and preconceptions.
Got it.
It's about seeing the extraordinary in the ordinary, the sacred in the everyday.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah.
It's not about escaping the world, but about seeing it with fresh eyes, with a heart full of wonder and appreciation.
You got it.
Yeah.
That is the heart of Zen.
Okay.
But before we get too comfortable with that thought,
Huh?
I think it's important to acknowledge that the path of Zen isn't always easy or comfortable.
You're right. Zen masters aren't known for being overly gentle.
Right.
They're sentimental. They
Yeah.
challenge their students.
Yeah.
They push them to their limits.
Yeah.
And the practices themselves, like grappling with kohulins,
Yeah.
can be incredibly demanding.
Exactly. And that's why the support of a community, the guidance of a skilled teacher can be
Right.
so valuable.
Yeah.
We need that support to keep us grounded, to encourage us when we falter,
Okay.
and to challenge us when we get complacent.
So it's not a solo journey.
It's better to have fellow travelers on the path.
This deep dive has been incredibly enriching,
It have.
but I have a feeling we've only just scratched the surface
Yeah.
of Zen Buddhism.
We have. There's so much more to explore.
So where do we go from here?
Yeah.
What's the next step for those of us who are intrigued by what we've discovered and want to delve deeper into Zen Buddhism?
That's a great question, and one that we'll explore in the final part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We'll discuss some resources for further exploration
Uh-huh.
and contemplate some of the big questions that Zen raises about the nature of reality,
Right.
the meaning of life,
Okay.
and our place in this interconnected web of existence.
It sounds like an intriguing journey awaits.
It does.
Until then, dear listener, I encourage you to sit with these ideas, to explore what resonates with you, and to see if you can catch a glimpse of that ox hiding within your own heart.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful image.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Zen Buddhism. Last time, we were exploring some of the core texts and teachings from D.T. Suzuki's Manual of Zen Buddhism, like those insightful gathas
Whoa, yeah.
and the mind-bending concept of emptiness.
Like, we even started to touch upon those paradoxical dialogues used by Chinese Zen masters.
Yes, remember Basso and Skido?
Yeah.
That was unique.
Their approach to teaching was something else.
It really was. And we ended on that intriguing question.
Yeah.
If the truth that Buddha nature is already within us, what's stopping us from seeing it?
Right.
So I'm curious, does the manual offer any guidance on how to clear away those mental obscurations and realize our true nature?
It does. And one of the most well-known practices, even outside of Zen circles, is meditation.
Oh, okay.
Now, Suzuki's manual doesn't give you like step-by-step instructions on how to meditate, but it does offer glimpses into the transformative power of this practice through the teachings of various Zen masters.
So instead of a Zen meditation for beginners guide, we get insights from those who've actually walked the path.
Precisely.
Okay.
The manual highlights Hakuin's Song of Meditation, for example.
Okay, yeah.
Hakuin was a key figure in Japanese Zen. And his song really emphasizes the profound shift in perspective that can happen through dedicated meditation practice.
He talks about realizing that this very earth is the lotus land of purity, and this body is the body of the Buddha.
Yes.
It's like seeing the world with completely new eyes, recognizing the sacredness in everything.
Exactly. And this realization isn't about escaping from reality or pretending that everything is perfect. It's about seeing things as they are with this clear, compassionate awareness and recognizing the inherent potential for awakening in all beings.
Including ourselves.
Including ourselves, exactly.
So it's not just about sitting in a quiet room trying to empty your mind.
It's not just about that.
There's a much deeper purpose.
Yes. The aim of Zen meditation isn't to simply blank out your thoughts. It's about cultivating what's often called a mind of no mind. A state of clear, open awareness that's not clouded by our usual mental chatter, our judgments, our attachments.
That sounds incredibly challenging.
It is.
Especially in our world where we're constantly bombarded with information and distraction.
It definitely takes patience and discipline. But the potential rewards are immense. Because when we can tap into that clear, open awareness, we can see things more clearly. Respond to situations with more wisdom, more compassion, and ultimately live a more awakened life.
It makes me wonder if some of those seemingly simple activities that Zen monks engage in, like calligraphy or gardening, are also forms of meditation, ways of cultivating that mind of no mind.
That's a great insight. You're right. Zen practice isn't limited to formal sitting meditation. It can be infused into every aspect of our lives. From the way we eat to the way we interact with others.
So we've got meditation as a key practice for cultivating that inner awareness. But the manual also mentions the use of koans in Zen training. We talked about Gensha's koan of the 3 invalids earlier, but I'm still a bit fuzzy on how they actually work.
Koans can definitely be a bit perplexing. Or are those seemingly nonsensical riddles like, what is the sound of one hand clapping? Well, those are koans. And they're a central part of Zen practice. Especially in the Rinzai school of Zen.
I've always found them intriguing, but never quite understood how they're supposed to lead to enlightenment. Is there like a secret meaning hidden within them that we're supposed to figure out?
Not exactly. Koans aren't like ordinary riddles with a logical solution. They're designed to break through our habitual patterns of thinking, to push us beyond the limits of our intellect.
So it's not about finding the right answer.
No. More about the process of grappling with them. Exactly. Koans are meant to be contemplated deeply, wrestled with, even struggled against. And sometimes in that moment of frustration or surrender, when we finally let go of our need to figure it all out, a flash of insight can occur. It's like a sudden crack in our rigid way of seeing the world, allowing a glimpse of a deeper reality to shine through.
That makes me think of what Daiyo Kokushi said in his poem, On Zen. He talked about emptying our thoughts and exhausting words to recognize that one essence that pervades all things.
Right.
Sounds like koans are a tool for doing just that.
Exactly.
Exhausting our usual way of thinking,
Uh-huh.
so something deeper can emerge.
That's a wonderful connection.
Yeah.
It highlights how both meditation and koans, those seemingly different practices, are ultimately aimed at the same thing.
Okay.
Breaking through those limited conceptual minds to experience a more direct, intuitive way of knowing.
Okay, so we've got meditation for quieting the mind.
Right.
Koans for shaking things up.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there are those 10 Oxherding pictures.
Yes.
Which, as we mentioned before, offer a visual metaphor for the Zen journey.
They do.
Yeah.
The 10 Oxherding Pictures so beautifully capture the progression through different stages of the Zen path.
Right.
Remember how it starts with that search for the ox?
Yeah.
Which represents our true nature, our Buddha nature.
And how it's not a linear path.
No.
It's more like a spiral.
Right, it is.
You think you found the ox, and then it disappears again.
And then, poof, it's gone.
And you're back to searching.
Yeah, it's such a perfect reflection of the reality of spiritual practice.
Right.
There are those moments of insight, followed by periods of confusion,
and
then deeper insights emerge.
Yeah.
It's this continuous process of refining and deepening our understanding.
Right.
Letting go of what we thought we knew to embrace a wider perspective.
I remember being particularly struck by those final 2 pictures in the series.
Yes.
The ones where the ox and the man disappear, and then there's just this empty circle.
Those final images point to a state of complete non-duality.
Yeah.
Where all distinctions just dissolve.
Right.
There's no longer a separate self, no subject observing an object.
Okay.
It's a state of pure awareness.
Wow.
Beyond all concepts and labels.
It sounds almost like a mystical experience.
It is.
Something that's beyond language.
Exactly. And that's ultimately where Zen points us beyond the realm of words and thoughts to a direct experience of reality.
This is all so fascinating.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, I'm also feeling a bit overwhelmed.
I can understand that.
It seems like such a radical shift in perspective, a different way of seeing the world. Do we have to become Zen monks to truly understand and practice Zen Buddhism?
Not at all.
Okay.
While the manual does offer glimpses into the lives of Zen monks and the role of monasteries in supporting Zen practice, it also makes it clear that the essence of Zen can be cultivated by anyone, regardless of their lifestyle or background.
So even though we might not be living in a monastery, we can still benefit from these teachings and practices.
Absolutely.
The manual mentions how Zen monasteries often has statues and images of various Buddhas, bodhisattvas, and historical figures, important to the Zen tradition.
It talked about the significance of different figures, like Bodhidharma, who is considered the founder of Zen in China, and Kwanzan, the Bodhisattva of compassion. And let's not forget Fudaishi, who's often associated with Zen libraries and scholarship.
It's like a whole ecosystem designed to support the journey.
Yeah, it highlights that multifaceted nature of Zen practice. It encompasses not just meditation and koans, but also study, ritual, and communal living.
But how do you create that kind of supportive environment in your own life if you're not living in a monastery setting?
That's a great question, and it leads us to another important aspect of Zen practice, highlighted in the manual, the role of the Zen master.
Yeah, it's clear that Zen masters aren't just teachers in the traditional sense. They're more like guides, mentors, even provocateurs at times.
Exactly. Their role is to help students see through their illusions, to break through the barriers of their own minds. And they often use unconventional methods to do this.
As we've seen with koans and those paradoxical dialogues.
Daito Kokushi, who compared monks who focused on rituals without genuine understanding to evil spirits.
He wasn't afraid to use strong language to shake people out of their complacency.
He understood the importance of challenging his students, pushing them beyond their comfort zones to awaken to a deeper reality.
So even though Zen emphasizes the truth within the importance of realizing our own Buddha nature, the role of a teacher seems pretty crucial.
It is. We often need that external perspective, that wise and compassionate guidance to help us see what we can't see on our own.
It makes sense. It's like having a skilled mountain guide when you're trying to navigate a treacherous path.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
You might have the strength and determination to climb the mountain yourself.
Right.
But a guide can help you avoid the pitfalls and stay on track.
And just as a mountain guide can help us reach the summit,
Yeah.
a Zen master can help us navigate that inner terrain of our minds and hearts, supporting us on the path to awakening.
Beautiful.
This has been such a rich exploration so far.
It has.
We've covered so much ground, from the core texts of Zen Buddhism to the teachings of these various masters, both Chinese and Japanese.
Absolutely.
But what's the key takeaway here? What's the essence of Zen that we can apply to our own lives, even if we're not living in a monastery and don't have a Zen master by our side?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
I had to distill it down to one core principle. It would be this. The truth you're seeking, the peace, the wisdom, the awakening.
Yeah.
It's already present within you.
It reminds me of what Hompo emphasized in his sermon on the One Mind.
Right.
We are all at our core Buddhas, just waiting to realize it.
And that realization doesn't come from accumulating more knowledge or achieving some special state. It's about letting go of our attachments. Quieting the mind and seeing clearly. Zen offers a path, but it's a path that ultimately leads back to ourselves.
So it's not about seeking something outside ourselves, but about discovering what's already here in this very moment.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Zen calls us to wake up to the present moment, to experience life fully and directly, without the filters of our thoughts and preconceptions.
Got it.
It's about seeing the extraordinary in the ordinary, the sacred in the everyday.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not about escaping the world, but about seeing it with fresh eyes, with a heart full of wonder and appreciation.
You got it. That, my friend, is the heart of Zen.
Okay.
But before we get too comfortable with that thought, I think it's important to acknowledge that the path of Zen isn't always easy or comfortable.
Right. Zen masters aren't known for being overly gentle or sentimental.
No.
They challenge their students.
Yes, they do.
Push them to their limits.
Right.
And the practices themselves, like grappling with koans, can be incredibly demanding.
Exactly. And that's why the support of a community, the guidance of a skilled teacher can be so valuable.
Yeah.
We need that support to keep us grounded. To encourage us when we falter. And to challenge us when we get complacent.
So it's not a solo journey.
It's better to have fellow travelers on the path.
This deep dive has been incredibly enriching.
It has.
But I have a feeling we've only just scratched the surface of Zen Buddhism.
You're absolutely right. Zen is a vast and multifaceted tradition. What we've explored today from Suzuki's manual is really just a starting point.
So where do we go from here? What's the next step for those of us who are intrigued by what we've discovered and want to delve deeper into Zen Buddhism?
That's a great question. And one that we'll explore in the final part of our deep dive. We'll discuss some resources for further exploration and contemplate some of the big questions that Zen raises about the nature of reality, the meaning of life, and our place in this interconnected web of existence.
It sounds like an intriguing journey awaits.
It does.
Until then, dear listener, I encourage you to sit with these ideas, to explore what resonates with you, and to see if you can catch a glimpse of that ox hiding within your own heart. Welcome back to our final deep dive into Zen Buddhism. We've covered so much ground, from those insightful gathas to the mind-bending concept of emptiness and the challenging practice of koans.
And we've explored how Zen isn't just an abstract philosophy, but a lived experience that can transform how we see ourselves and the world.
I feel like we've only just scratched the surface, though. What advice would you give to those of us who want to keep exploring, who want to go beyond Suzuki's manual and delve deeper?
Well, Suzuki himself wrote extensively about Zen, so exploring more of his work is an excellent place to start. His essays in Zen Buddhism offer a deeper dive into many of the concepts we've talked about in this deep dive.
Essays in Zen Buddhism. Going on the reading list. What else would you recommend?
If you're intrigued by those paradoxical koans that Zen masters use to challenge their students, I highly recommend checking out the Blue Cliff Record. It's a classic collection of 100 koans and commentaries by ancient Zen masters.
Wow.
It's a challenging read, but incredibly insightful.
Blue Cliff Record. I'm adding that too.
Yeah.
I got to admit, those koans really got me thinking.
Oh, they're good.
Yeah.
And for those interested in the history and lineage of Zen, The Transmission of the Lamp is a fascinating chronicle of the Zen patriarchs, from Bodhidharma to those later Chinese and Japanese masters we've discussed.
So we've got books for exploring the philosophy, the practice, and the history of Zen.
Yeah.
But what about experiencing Zen in a more, like, direct, tangible way?
Yeah.
Are there places people can go to practice Zen Buddhism to connect with others on a similar path?
Absolutely. Zen centers and groups can be found all over the world.
Oh, wow.
These centers offer opportunities to learn about Zen meditation,
Okay.
to participate in retreats, and engage in traditional Zen practices like chanting and calligraphy.
So it's like Zen isn't just something you read about in a book, it's a living tradition that people are practicing and experiencing in communities around the world.
You hit the nail on the head.
Mm.
And that's one of the beautiful things about Zen. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Right.
It invites us to find our own path, our own way of engaging with these teachings.
It's a reminder that the journey of awakening is a deeply personal one.
Yes.
There's no right or wrong way to do it.
Exactly. Zen encourages us to be curious, to experiment, and to trust our own intuition.
This deep dive has been such an enriching experience.
It has.
It's like we've opened a door to this vast and mysterious landscape, and I'm eager to see where the path leads.
And that's the spirit of Zen.
Yeah.
It's not about reaching some final destination, but about embracing the journey.
Right.
With all its twists and turns.
Yeah.
Its moments of clarity and confusion.
Right.
It's about waking up to the richness and wonder of this very moment, right here, right now.
It makes me think of those words by Hakuin. This very earth is the lotus land of purity, and this body is the body of the Buddha.
Beautifully put. We invite you, dear listener, to continue this exploration, to find your own path within this vast and ever-evolving world of Zen Buddhism.
May your journey be filled with insight, compassion, and a deep sense of peace.
Yes.
And remember, as we often say here on The Deep Dive, the most profound discoveries are often the ones we make within ourselves.